What's up, man?
How you doing?
Pretty good, man.
All right. I wanted to get a little bit of charting done early because I'm teaching ICA at 5 this time, and then I have students for math after that. So let's get this up early. All I have here right now is just actually there's an algorithm that Chemo also has. I was just taking a look at it to see if there was any sort of signal of the reversal, right? Because what we experienced today was pretty much a reversal. And not exactly, it had a short exit. Sometimes you can almost imagine that short exit signal to be the get out sign for the shorts, but also the potential buy signal. What I've noticed with the algorithm that he has is it has essentially a moving stop, you could imagine. So if it says sell at a certain point, it's usually because it broke through one of the resistances, right? This green line went up here, and the breakthrough that gives a sell signal on the 30-minute time frame. And on the 30-minute time frame, it'll give you your first exit, your second exit, and then here, right, when it broke back up above this kind of trailing value, it tells you to get out. So let's take a quick look closer. We got to keep in mind this week is a very short week, right? So be aware that with the shortened week, we're going to experience a lower volume, right? Now, I know you've been working on trying to understand ICT, right? Inner circle trading. I've been doing some learning on my side as well, but I'm still not 100% familiar with everything. But basically, there is this tool, the super order block that you can use. And what you can do here is it'll help you find those fair value gaps and the order blocks, right? Now, even without hearing what they have to say about what each one is, I was taking a look at this and I was trying to understand, okay, what exactly and where do these things show up, right? Where exactly are these order blocks and where exactly are these fair value gaps, you might imagine? And from a couple of different YouTube videos that I was going through, not only the ICT channel itself as well, but there's this, their theory, which you can see, obviously Cut It Up's been very, very successful with it. Their theory is the fact that so many people now focus on price action that theory, some people want to start to ignore that theory, okay? Now, price action still exists, right? There's where prices bounce, etc., resistance and support. But what the ICT approach, inner circle, is essentially what the markets themselves is doing, what they're doing, what they're trying to do in order to, capitalize on their profits. Keep in mind, what I've taught everybody is that no matter what market we're dealing with is still controlled by a market maker. There's still people issuing shares and issuing contracts and options, and they have a profit margin as a business, and they have it set up in a way for them to profit as much as possible, right? And so I want to ask you this too. Going into the week, wouldn't you say most people started off feeling quite bearish at the beginning of the week, right? Let's do a quick look here too. We'll use PCC as our indicator, puts versus calls. The number of puts being taken out at the end of the month or end of the week, last week, right, ended up near a high. We opened up and now we're headed back toward calls. Does that make sense? Because last week we ended it so bearish. The market knows that, and the market's doing their best to sap that liquidity. That's essentially what ICT is trying to help you guys and help all of us understand too. I'm trying to get a better grasp as to what's going on. So, from what I can see here, where do these red order blocks show up? Okay, where do the green order blocks show up? You'll notice are on the major reversals. Okay, you'll see where it's ultimately taking this red candle, and that's where the order block stands. Now let's think about that. If big money here is pushing it away, they've got an investment in there. That makes sense. They've got their buys right here. Okay, so you can think of the order block as where big money happens to stand, right? When it comes down to that order block, right? Here's this order block right here. When it comes back down to it here, actually, let me zoom in even more to give you guys that. Came down, okay, and it pushed back up, right? Same here, came down and pushed back up, all right? And so that order block acts as a natural bit of resistance, but if it gets broken through, obviously it's going to give up, right? Big money is going to get themselves out of that trade, and so it becomes significant support and resistance. Now, just like what we've always understood with these things, you know, big time frames, more marbles is great, but especially with this too, as you go in closer, and that's also, you can notice, cut it up, and why I have done that as well, is they'll have the order blocks charted on additional time frames. Okay, so yeah, let me do this real quick. These are my resistance lines, but you can imagine we're essentially trashing these at this point. And what we're focused on, here, we'll ignore volume for this to make this clean. What we're going to draw here, or we're actually going to draw out a couple of these order blocks and fair value gaps. Okay, so the thing here with this one, so we're down here. The next order block that we had was right here. Okay, so I'll label that. No, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Okay, that's an order block, and this is on the daily, so we'll put the letter D for that. Okay, order block daily. We'll copy that again for above here too, because there's another one up here. All right, and fair value gap. So an order block, you can imagine, is, let me use like a, you know, if we're using Jordan shoes, for example, it's where some big entity, some big group has put in a bunch, has either bought or sold a ton. That makes sense. And so it's where reversals are likely to happen, but if it gives up and doesn't reverse, then it's going to continue. Okay, and so it's a significant area of buyers or significant area of sellers. In this situation, we have the OB negative, which means it's a significant area of sellers. And this fair value gap, okay? One thing you might have noticed, especially with recent price action, is anytime we go and move very quickly away from something, we tend to go back either right below into it or right above it before we revert, okay? How does that work? Well, ultimately, big money is trying to trap as many people as possible, okay? And so in that order block, what they have here is, you know, they've pushed it down, got everybody very bearish. People get in when it's too bearish, and they're going to reverse it until people start to get bullish again. When people get bullish, then they reverse it back down. So, you know, that's where these sine waves of our, you know, price movement have really been, you know, mimicking, you know, a lot more recently. Is big money is, you know, taking advantage of the price action that retail traders understand, and they're now, you know, those bounces that are happening way faster right now, and a lot of what you may be noticing is it's going against what retail is expecting. Keep that in mind. Okay, so once those are drawn, you know, we can imagine the fair value gaps in between. We start to go and look for confluence in smaller time frames. So do you see how that fair value gap and that order block have now changed? Okay, so this is the order block here now on the 4 hour. Okay, I'm just going to put a 4H for the order block. So where they overlap starts to give us an idea of where the majority may stand. So in this one, order blocks even higher up, right? Even smaller portion right here. So where you have that type of confluence, you can imagine there's a lot of sellers standing right here. It's going to be extremely hard for us to break up above this 417. We'll start to hit resistance on the 414 and the 415, 416 right here. But it's this one, the 1 hour, right? You have all this overlap in all of it. Okay, same with here, these smaller ones. Now you'll notice this order block here is up here, but you also have one right here. Okay, let's go a little bit closer, because what I noticed with today, okay, let's draw our eyes to where these triangles, these green triangles are. Because what you end up having here are you have significant, you can not always, these aren't exactly 3 candles, but they're reversal candles, right? Significant reversal candles that break above the previous one, okay? What does that show in terms of buyers versus sellers or supply and demand? They'll say in these situations, you have demand coming in here, here, and technically you do have it here too, okay? You didn't have as much of a reversal in the situation. You don't break down too far. And then continuation up. So you see how we bounced off that fair value gap right here from before, okay? And just like I know, Michael, you were saying, there is significant resistance with that daily order block, and it sits right above. Do you see that? We already bounced off of it before, you might imagine. See? That was significant resistance. Do you see that? Okay. Now, so we're exactly at the 2 spots. We're either going to test this spot out, right? Or if we do make it back up, we can have an area up here that we can test before we revert back down. Okay. Now let's add in additional indicators and information from there. I'm on the 15-minute. Let's actually pull out to the hourly right now. This is actually still, you want to keep in mind here, it's still quite bullish in the movement. I want to point that out. I know I've taught you guys the basic divergences of when things are going down here, right? You can have divergence in these time frames where you have it coming up higher, right? And this one. Okay. Right, you see how that's giving us pretty significant divergence here on the 1 hour time frame even, okay? RSI even shows, oh, I don't know how that changed. There we go. Okay. Now what else? Well, on the other hand too, you got to keep in mind this was going lower, but now RSI is allowing it, and same with our stochastic is allowing that to go higher. So there's still actually a decent chance SPY will go here, and I want to say that 400 is definitely that significant, not only psychological resistance, right, but also the beginning of that next order block. Okay, so if I'm going to be playing a bullish side, that would probably be that next target up there. Okay, now on the other hand, if we do have this start to reverse, so for some reason maybe tomorrow, again, this could be news related, it could be some sort of earnings thing that shows and things don't turn out as well. Well, look at it this way, is if it does happen to revert, where is big money targeting next? Big money is now going to target the liquidity here and the liquidity here. That makes sense? So you can add this on again, the super order block. This is something that they were talking about in the chat. It's something that'll help you draw these out to be able to visualize where things are. Now, we do have some, at least some reversal potentially coming for a little bit, but it doesn't even have to be big, right? How big, and let's get a little guess as to where things potentially could head down. Let's go into the smaller timeframes because it doesn't have to go very far. Keep that in mind. All right, the last fair value gap here is at 395, or almost pretty much 396, you may imagine. Okay, so it wouldn't be surprising to see it do something like that. That way this gets some relief. That way this gets a little bit of relief before it heads back up. I would not be surprised if that was what happens, okay? A bounce in these situations can be very, very quick, okay? When I first started teaching, there was this thing where when price moves extremely fast away from a certain area, there's always a probability that it'll head back to that area sooner or later, okay? That makes sense? And so like quick pushes away often get retested. And that's just to show where the buyers and sellers stand in terms of, you know, that price, for that price to hold, it needs to really get tested. That makes sense? So if it's really true that we're gonna go down, then yeah, it's gonna get tested again. And in this situation, we do have overall, it's still overall bearish, but right now, remember, these rallies that we can experience can be, you know, quite powerful, okay? Where this goes, it, you know, I want to say 400 right now is the first target. If it does break over this 405, we do have a bit more room up here toward this, you know, the 418 area, okay? Now, another thing too, I'm gonna trash this for a sec. I was looking at this and something really, here, let's do this. Let's go into the 15-minute first, because I want you to observe this right here. This area, okay? I'm gonna go out to the daily next. And I kind of want to highlight this area. You see that? So what happened last time was we had this pretty significant area of consolidation and we went a little bit above it before we broke back down. You see that? So this tool, I want to make sure you guys also understand how to use it. You have, these are prediction tools. You go under here under bars pattern. I can copy these bars, the bar pattern here, okay? And I can shift it to try to predict something else that may be coming up. Now, keep in mind, we talked about fractals. So I'm actually going to shrink this guy down, okay? I'm going to shrink this guy down and see if we can match it up in here to potentially see a fractal move, right? Because keep in mind on this right here, the copy that I have, you see where I was showing you guys that similar shape, similar consolidation, big drop down, consolidation, bottom again, okay? So let's go ahead and overlay this to kind of see what maybe we might be able to experience in terms of possible targets. Let's stretch it the way that I need to. Okay, so if I were to kind of match it from the drop, and then you see this area is about the same. This, I know it didn't go as low, but if you notice, that would give us a target for an area up here, okay? Somewhere maybe up here. Now, of course, we could just, you know, play around with this, try to match it up. Fractals are never going to be one-to-one, but it can give us a few possibilities of predictions of where we might look for. And then keep in mind, if I had that in addition to my order blocks and what I see there, that gives that additional confluence of where price potentially could be headed, okay? Any questions on that?
No questions right now. Thanks, man.
Go for it. No questions?
Oh, I said no questions right now. I said thanks for this analysis.
Okay. I thought you said I have a question. Okay, let me do this. Let's talk about today, because I was trying to make sure people saw this. We don't need all these things for it too. I wanted to show you guys the VIX, right? I kept on saying, guys, keep an eye on the VIX, look at what's going on with it. And let's do here on the 30-minute. We've been in this VIX, you know, this little interesting looking flag. You've got this top end of it. We've rejected, you know, 1, 2, kind of tested close, tried to get up there again, and rejected super hard here too, okay? Every time we come back down here, I mean, yeah, we had a good rejection here once. We did it again here. Although we let it through here, that really did have us kind of come test that down here, okay? Test out this previous area. And then had another, you know, shot up, tested the top, and now we're back down here, okay? So one thing I also noticed too is we do have this uptrend that exists. I would not be surprised to see us have a little bit more upwards to go before we bounce off this part of the trend line. Where else could that be as well, right? So using kind of that idea of where, right, this area already rejected. So then we're looking at this next area would very likely be this and these candles, and that would create, I would want to say that order block almost does pretty much line up depending on how fast we get there, right? The faster we move, a little bit lower that it probably could go, right? But if it takes a little more time, that'll hold up a little more. Okay. So what does that mean? Okay, so today in particular, this got broken. I actually had an alert set where was it? It was like, it was on my other chart though, but right here, when this line got broken, my phone told me, hey, we're breaking this value. And in my mind, I went, oh, hey, we're very likely going higher, okay? Because otherwise what would happen is we would just reject. We would have rejected already. But in this case, we went and broke down. So look at this right here, 9 on the bottom here, 940, okay? 940 is where we broke. If I want to give you more precise times, let's say here, 10 o'clock, okay? Let's actually do this. We'll put this on the daily. Let's hope that's not too ugly, okay? We're gonna pull up the other one to compare to, just show you what SPY looks like, right? Oh, that's already there. Okay. Come on, there we go, okay. Here's where we started, right down here, the 7th. Okay. All right, and then, so we broke through around here, right? Okay, so we broke through and retested in terms of the VIX, broke through and retested and kept going, all right? And that right there was also when this continued. Oh, hold on, my thing is a little bit off. Let's scoot this. Let's see real quick. It's because I'm, hold on real quick. Why is this showing? Oh, this was, where are the times all off? Oh, because the VIX is showing after or pre-market. There we go. Let's scoot that. There we go. Okay. So clean that up again. Okay. So right here, right about time we had that breakdown and retest. Okay. And that's also right where this happened. Do you see how as this broke, this also broke up too? You see that? okay? So as it broke that resistance, the VIX went down. We broke SPY's resistance and SPY went up, okay? And that was your indication that the indices were likely to rally upward in the situation. Let's take also a quick look at Apple, because I know they had their event, but I wasn't really. Something about the iPhone 14 has an always on display. There, people were always talking about how there's a little, it's called the pill that exists at the top where the webcam exists. Apple has now made it where it's actually kind of like what they did with the MacBook Touch Bar, where now it actually is something that interacts. It actually changes size and shows different things like people are calling kind of thing. So with Apple's, these things, you have to think about it in terms of people. It creates demand from the people. The public looks at it as, hey, Apple is bringing in this new thing, hey, I gotta have it, right? Question wise will be whether or not people are able to purchase as time goes on, if the economy really is going to struggle or people start to lose their jobs. But in this situation, Apple had a pretty nice little rally, if you might imagine, just from that news. Now, it's not even that great because comparatively to the rest of it, all it really did was it allowed it to flag, right? You just have this consolidation area. It just bounced back and forth so far. Yes, it's got this like rising wedge kind of shape, okay? So, and then this drop down, also this drop down. It's got some, areas that's gotta break through. Now, in terms of that fair value gap and all that type of thing, there is this target that if, I'm trying to help you guys understand, think of it in terms of big money. Everybody thinks Apple's either headed down or up, right? Right now, after the event, they all think it's heading up. So we're taking our profits along that way, right? Now, once people start to get too bearish as well, then we might try to head it back up toward those areas of previous liquidity. That makes sense? Get people suddenly hopeful and then revert it back down to the next level. So that's, if you might understand, that's kind of the game, the way the game's been swinging back and forth, okay? Let's continue using SPY as that example too. I want to use try to think about what the media, I don't know if you guys listen to much of what the media says about the markets, or at least hear what the sentiment is overall, aside from, just seeing charts. But we have, I've always been posting the fear and greed indicators, but basically there's been this pretty distinct style in terms of what's being said in certain areas, okay? What's being said while you're up here is always, we're about to go make new all-time highs, okay? They also say here, this is not a bear market anymore, etc. Okay, but I want you to, look at the ups and then look at the downs and compare them. Yes, this bounced up, but it was heavy selling. Let me use red. It was heavy selling. Okay, heavy selling. Yes, we had a rally, but we now understand this was a bear market rally where Apple had 11 days of green in a row. And that's just shorts covering because they have made their profits from, shorts number 1, shorts number 2, and shorts number 3. They're taking their profits down here. Okay, so it goes back up. Then they reshort it. Okay, you can imagine a lot of shorts are taken out in these areas. When they reshort it and it goes down and it drops, look how quickly it drops in these situations. It's about the velocity. Look at this velocity here, okay? Testing the bottom of the channel, okay? this velocity and this velocity. Now, let's compare them a little bit too, though. Okay, so you've got drop, right? Big drop. You got this first big drop and then the second big drop. We're not falling as fast as we were here, you might imagine, right? Yes, this one part, but here we went within this short amount of time. If we had done that, this would have gone down here already. So the amount of buyers that are sitting down here are actually fairly significant, not allowing them to push back or push straight through at this point. Okay, so that bounce, right? We kept on saying there's going to be, we saw a little bounce and we're experiencing another little bounce as well, you know, relative to the bigger price action movement. But a lot of that had to do with our indicators down here. Okay, so real quick, you know, use the 1 hour here, or, you know, you can go even a little bit closer, but 1 hour, 2 hour will show you right here. That's where these things got super far down. Okay, so those reversals will happen, especially the more times that this hits and stays down here and starts to show the divergence. Those are your indications of that reversal. Okay, so, you know, we've got some significant targets. You know, like I said, 400 is not out of the question. If we do break that 400, we will potentially head up toward that 403 range. And then if we do break that, that's the hard part. We have a much higher area to go, closer to like 410. But again, that bullish momentum, could this just be where shorts, you know, they're taking their first set of profits, right? And again, like I was showing you guys with that fractal movement, you have the target up there. If it's going to do something similar to what we just did on a bigger scale, or if it doesn't go quite that high, it'll probably just revert around here. Okay. Any tickers other than this that you guys were looking at that you want me to go over? I figured SPY has been the most common and most important one. No? Okay. Yeah. If you can understand SPY, so right now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to absorb, you know, because ICT has so many episodes. They've got that whole playlist. I'm going to try to absorb 1 to 2 episodes a day, take my notes on it, try to report back to you guys on additional things that I've tried to, you know, it's not just to listen to what they have to say, but try to piece it together with the way that I've taught you guys already. Because at the end of the day, it's still just supply and demand. But I'm trying to figure out my wording for it so I can relay that information to you. So just be patient with me. I appreciate it. Like I told you, the way that the markets always change, you know, like back in the day where they said, hey, you could invest at the end of the night and then, or at the market close and sell at market open. That was a 480% return. You know, if that were still working, we would all be doing that right now. The markets continuously change, and that's why, you know, a part of what we offered with ICA is making sure you guys still have these tools and can continue to learn with us, you know, especially as things change. So if you have your own time too, feel free to go through ICT on your own time. I've been putting it on 1.5 to 2x speed just to, you know, be able to go through it and get it through efficiently. But, you know, if you guys are interested in it, I think it never hurts to get additional eyes and ears on stuff so we can converse about it more efficiently. All right. All right, if that's it, we'll talk about stuff. I'll try to do this again, probably after market close on Friday. I'll try to aim for this time. I know there's not going to be too many people that can make it, but for those that can, I'll try to do this and get it posted so you guys can watch it. My weekends are going to start to get busier as school starts for my students. So, all right, you guys have a great rest of your day. We'll chat again soon.